Hi everyone, I'm Heinz and welcome back to another video from SIC Forex. Today we'll be featuring another Forex EA that is available for free on the MQL marketplace. Remember to smash that like and subscribe button if you enjoy any part of this video. In this video we'll be covering the Dark Venus strategies, grid trading settings, close mode, and our stop loss settings. What this means is that we will take a look at the advanced settings that you can use to make your Dark Venus strategy profitable. First, Dark Venus Forex Robot is based on a Bollinger Band strategy. So let's start with what is a Bollinger Band. A Bollinger Band is a technical analysis tool defined by a set of trend lines with two standard deviations, one plotted positive and one negative, away from a simple moving average of a specific security's price, in this case the Euro USD. Because of the distance of the bands are based on a standard deviation, they adjust to volatility swings in the underlying price. You can also adjust the preferences according to your own strategy. Bollinger Bands were developed and copyrighted by the famous technical trader John Bollinger, designed to discover opportunities that give investors a higher probability of properly identifying when an asset is overbought or oversold. When we think of statistical analysis, the two standard deviations should account for 94% of movements when they are outside of the Bollinger Bands. For this reason, strategy 1 and 2 of Dark Venus uses the outer bands to place trades. What we'll be doing next is taking a visual look at all 6 of the different strategies that are used in the Bollinger Band for Dark Venus. It is important to understand that Bollinger Bands on their own do have limitations. However, because they are adjustable, you can adjust them according to different strategies. For example, if we wanted to use a slower moving average, the simple moving average, we could change the period to 50. Then we could also change the standard deviation. The deviation is used for 2 of the strategies, whereas the standard moving average or simple moving average is used for the others. So let's move over to our strategy tester, and I will be using the visual mode to explain each strategy. We will be using the Euro USD on the 15-minute time frame, and I will be using every tick based on real ticks for FBS Broker. First, we are going to start with our default settings and take a look at the 6 strategies. First, let's start with sell above and buy below, and buy above and sell below. These 2 strategies use the standard deviation of the Bollinger Band. Now, as you can see, the reason why I use a time filter is because of the spread that you see when the market opens at the Sydney session on Monday morning in Sydney. Now, the spread is currently 80 or 8 pips, and as you can see, it goes up to 124. For this reason, I typically don't trade the first hour of market open. And to avoid this, you simply need to adjust your trading hours filter. The trading days and trading hour filter can be very useful to avoid these negative times of trading. So when we adjust it to only start an hour later, it won't place any trades during the first 4 candles. Remember, on the 15-minute time frame, each candle represents 15 minutes. I hope that this small tip about spread, which can also vary a lot during important news events, will give you a better idea of trading. So as you can see, Dark Venus placed a buy when the price crossed through the Bollinger Band and closed below, and on default it placed a 5 pip or 50 point take profit now above the buy order. So the moment that price closes outside of the Bollinger Band, in this strategy, it will take a buy, and the buy above, sell below, which is the opposite of the strategy. You will see that it will now, instead of placing it will now place a opposite order. So you will see that it will take a sell. So you'll see it will take a sell the moment that the Bollinger Band the price goes outside of the Bollinger Band and closes. The way to make it that it would only trade once the bar is closed is the moment of signal strategy. Our next strategy is going to be the uptrend buy and downtrend sell. Now, this is a little bit of a more complex strategy. However, let's keep it simple. Again, for the first 4 candles, the bot won't trade, as I have set it up to not trade during that hour. What the uptrend buy and downtrend sell bot identifies is it uses the central band and looks for pullbacks in the market's direction. So as you can see, as we were in a downtrend, that we were entering a sell trade. So as the market continues, you will see that it placed the trade in a sell direction. Our next strategy is the opposite, which is the downtrend buy and uptrend sell. The only difference between the two strategies is that this is an inverse strategy again. So where we previously placed a sell order, same criteria, now we place a buy order. So this is a counter trend strategy. So this is a counter trend strategy. So you will see as price moved against us, we continued placing buy orders. The next one that we are going to take a look at is cross up the central band in a uptrend and cross down the central band in a downtrend. Now, cross up the central band in an uptrend has a couple more criterias that are different from the other option. Now, the cross up the central band, the strategy is more complex because it requires 2 conditions to be met. A downtrend of at least 5 bars is required, so it is also necessary that the central bar is crossed by the price in the direction of the order. Now, you will see when it opens, the place is when there is an engulfing or pullback in the market. I have found this strategy very useful, and we will base our set file for today on this strategy. So the same criteria in the opposite is true for when it is looking for a buy order. Now remember, the 6th strategy is the opposite of that strategy, where it will place a buy where it just placed a sell. The next thing that we are going to look at is how to adjust the Bollinger Band for the different types of strategy. Remember, the first 2 are reliant on the Bollinger Band's deviation, and the Bollinger Band period is used for the other 4 strategies. Now let's take an example again. As you can see now, I have changed the standard deviation to 3 and kept the simple moving average at 20. What you will see this doing is that it will take a lot longer for it to place the first trade, as I have set the band width of the Bollinger Band to 3 deviations instead of 2. So now again, on this default settings of bar close price, it needs to close outside the deviation band. Next, if we change the period and the deviation, we have a much less sensitive Bollinger Band. This is one of the most popular ways of trading the Bollinger Band, with a 50 moving average and a 3 standard deviation. Again, the quantity of trades will be less. However, we do believe that because of that, we will be able to achieve a relatively high win rate. So there it used the grid function to close a small profit on a Bollinger Band of 50 with a standard deviation of 3. The other 4 options all revolve around the period of the moving average and don't take the deviations of the band into consideration. So if you are looking to build a trend following strategy around the 50 moving average, it gives you an opportunity to do this completely automated. Now, when we take a look at the other four strategies, I feel that the last two, which cross the central band as an additional confirmation, will be the safest ways to trade the dark Venus EA. Now, when we take a look at the other options that are available to us, it is important to understand that dark Venus is a grid trading bot. What this means is if price goes against the original trade, it will continue placing trades in the opposite direction. So let's start with our grid trading settings. Firstly, you can enable or disable your grid. Our next four options are filters and work as follow. Firstly, right at the top, we have our maximum spread conditions. Another way to avoid placing trades during really high volatile times and avoiding unnecessary losses is to set your maximum spread filter according to your own specific broker. By doing this, it won't place trades when the spread is above a specific level. Next, when it comes to comply to indicator conditions, it means the first set of Bollinger Band conditions need to be met again before another trade is placed in the grid. Our next filter is the hours filter, meaning you can set your grid to only be open or placing trades during a specific time of the day according to broker server time. Lastly, our comply with weekdays condition is another filter where you can set the grid according to specific trading days. Next, we are going to take a closer look at our grid management options. Our grid management is the lot size that will be used during the grid, and we have four different options. We have lots sum, martingale, all lot sum, and fix. Each of these use the coefficient grid management number for its specific to determine the next lot size that will be placed in the grid. Firstly, when it comes to lot sum and all lot sum, these use the quantity of trades that are placed. Now, if you set allow, buy, and sell at the same time to false, these two will be the same. However, if you select all lot sum, you allow buy and sell at the same time to true, there will be a much larger lot placed in the series because it takes both buys and sells into consideration. If we select the all lot sum, it uses both the buy side and the sell side to determine the next lot size in the grid. And our simplest option is a fixed mode. Now, what the fixed mode means is you will see with the lot sizing in the grid that it makes a significant change to the next trade in the grid. So let's take a look at what happens. Again, we are using the Euro USD on the 15-minute for our visualization. I recommend visualizing all of the different grid types to understand exactly what they mean. So at our fixed lot grid, you will see each of the grid trades is exactly the same lot size. The reason for this is your grid management determines the type of lots used in the grid. So if you set it to fixed, it will use 1. Let's look at our martingale option, which I have found to be one of the most aggressive choices. Again, it uses the coefficient grid management to place and determine the next lot size that is used in the grid. Again, I recommend testing each of these different grid options to find what works the best for your strategy. Each of them have their own advantages and disadvantages depending on how you combine them and use them together. So again, it took a buy on the default strategy and the trade is moving against us. You'll see with our coefficient multiplier of 2, the next lot is 0.02 and the third trade is 0.04. As we continue on, the lot double again to 0.08 with our grid coefficient of 2. By doing this, the grid will place, because of the distance between the grids, very large lot sizes very quickly, meaning even in this small run against us, we are already placing very large lots up to 0.16. Now that we've taken a look at the different grid management options that determine your lot size, I'm going to show you the minimum distance for the grid orders option and the minimum distance multiplier. The lot sum for grid management is the default option, so we will be using that to determine our next parameters. So when we have it set to lot sum, I'm going to now change the minimum distance multiplier. Now the minimum distance multiplier increases the distance between your different trades placed on the grid. The first trade is again placed when the criteria is outside the Bollinger Band, and our second trade at 5 pips lower, which is the default. You'll see that the next trade, our third trade though, is 2 times the size away from the first one. Again, as the trade continues against us, you'll see now that it will add these together and then multiply it by 2 to determine the position of the next trade. What you will see is that because of this, you have a varying grid display for your strategy. Now, it is important to understand that combining these in the right way is important, otherwise your trades might be too far apart. The next one that we are going to look at is order 1 trade per bar. Here you can set the amount of times by changing how long the bot sees a candle before opening another trade. For example, you can set it to an hour and it will only place 1 trade in the grid per hour. Next, I'm going to show you the minimum distance on ATR. For us to understand this a little bit better, let's open a chart. Let's take off the grid and add in the ATR indicator. Now, under indicators, you'll need to select custom, and you can select the ATR, which is called the average true range. Now, the average true range shows the average movement in pips during the last 14 periods or 14 15-minute candles. On default, the ATR period is set to 14. However, Dark Venus on default uses it at 9. For this reason, I often adjust my ATR period to what I usually trade, which is 14. Now, what this means is the minimum distance on the ATR times the ATR multiplier will determine the spacing in the lot size. So what I do is I combine this with the other grid functions and filters to improve the way that my grid trades. For example, I will set a minimum distance of 200 and 2 times the 14 period ATR for the next grid trade. By doing this, you have a much less sensitive grid, and when price is very volatile, the spacing between the grid will be larger. However, when price isn't volatile, the spacing between the grid will be less. Combining this with your hour and weekday conditions will make sure that you trade during the right times. Next, we are going to our gain loss target settings, and we are going to take a closer look at the close mode. The close mode in Dark Venus has 4 different options: the average point weighted, break even, and fix point. Now, it is important to understand that close mode works on both your take target settings and your loss settings. On default, Dark Venus uses the average point weighted. So let's take a look at the different options and how it works. When it comes to average point, each trade has the own weight, whereas average point weighted, additional weighting is given to larger or bigger trades. The same way an exponential moving average takes more recent information into consideration, an average point weighted will take larger lots or other series trades into consideration. Another option is your break even option. What this does is after one trade, when your Dark Venus has placed more than one trade, it will start using it as a break-even point and close all the trades at that point. Let's take a look at each of these options so we can have a visual look at what it would look like on a chart. Again, all the other settings have been left on default. So let's take a look at what happens. So here we have a buy and a sell because of the spread. And you'll see as price moves against us, take a look at where the take profit for the trade will be. So after 5 trades, you will see the take profit is below the second trade. It is important to identify where the potential take profit will be, because when we compare this now with our average point weighted, where more weight is given to other grid trades than the first, instead of each having an equal value, you will see that as we go down, that this take profit level for this trade is higher. So as we can see here, the next option that we will be taking a look at is our break-even option. The break-even option is one of the safest ways that I have found to manage risk when you are in drawdown. What this does is it looks for a break-even opportunity to close the series or the grid. Take a look at our account balance. After our first 2 trades, you will see the first trade closes at the typical take profit of 50 cents. And then after this, we go into a series of drawdown. During this series of drawdown, you'll see that we placed 5 trades again, 6 trades again, and we're waiting for the price to return to a break-even point, and Dark Venus tries to get us out as close to break-even as possible. So you'll see the account balance is typically the same at 1,056. The last option is a fixed point option, where the price comes 5 pips back in a fixed direction. What this means is that it places the trades again, as you can see, because of the default options. It places both a buy and a sell at the same time. And as price trends against us, you will see it continues to place trades in the grid and then gets us out to a fixed profit of 5 pips. Next, let's take a look at how we can combine our break-even strategy and make it more profitable. Now, it's important to understand combining different options will give you different results. So understanding where each of them fits into the puzzle is important to adjusting Dark Venus. For example, I'm going to change the take target for the first order from 50 to 150, and I'm going to have an average trading stop starting at 50 points and trailing by 50 points. Next, let's select our visual mode. Oh, I have forgotten to change true to false for our first trade. So different take target for first order, or you can change your take target for all orders, because remember, the moment it goes into grid, it will look for the break-even option. There we go. We now have a 15 pip take target for the sell and a 15 pip take target for the buy. Now, once the bot enters into a grid mode, now it is only looking again for our break-even option for the buy side of the grid. By doing this, you can actually trade both ways and still limit your risk when the grids become too large. So now that we have taken a look at how to combine the break-even function with our first order take target profit target, let's take a look at how we can combine what we've learned so far into a profitable set file. before we do that, one of the most important things under gain loss target settings is our stop loss settings. Dark Venus does have 3 different stop loss options. The first being a stop target. You can also call your default stop loss style, where we have a default of first order and disabled. When you select first order, the stop loss will be a hard stop loss from the first order. When you select default, it will adjust it for the grid. Next option available is our monetary loss settings. To enable this function, simply select the Enable Monetary Stop Loss function, and this is expressed in account currency terms. You also have a Multiply Monetary Stop Loss Amount function, where you multiply the start lot by 100. You also have the option to stop Dark Venus after it hit its monetary loss. And remember, when you are using the monetary stop loss amount, it is expressed in your own trading account. Lastly, my favorite is the percentage loss settings, as it automatically adjusts as your account balance increases. Firstly, you'll need to enable it and then select the percentage that you want to use. Now I want to do a quick example of what would happen if we used a $100 deposit and we enable close loss in percentage and a 30% loss amount. Now, even though it's 30%, remember 30% of $100 is still a $30 stop loss. If you are trying to trade a grid in a profitable way, I don't feel that such a tight stop loss will work. The only way that you'll be able to do that is if you only trade very limited times. However, that will potentially limit your profit as well. As you can see here in our example, we have entered 3 trades, and if you look at the margin level, it was already broken and the loss was closed at minus $30, bringing our account equity to $7.32. When I deposit $100 into this type of trading account, I leave it as false, because I know when I am depositing that $100 that it is all up for risk. It is important to only trade money that you are willing to lose. Now that we have taken a look at the advanced settings, let's use it to build a set file. Firstly, select a maximum spread according to the security that you are trading. Enable your money management to true. However, remember, for a small balance like $100, this won't make a big difference. When you look at the 6 Bollinger Band strategies, I'm going to use the one with double confirmation, which is the cross up central band in an uptrend, and a period of 50 and a deviation of 3. My typical trading time is between 2 in the morning and 10 at night. So make sure to set that according to your own broker server time. So from the Sydney session until New York. Lastly, remember for trading days that I select false, and this will now affect my grid orders as well. Allow buy and sell at the same time is also false. These additional filters for the grid are very important, because otherwise it would be placing trades during unfavorable times and, in my opinion, on unfavorable days. I'm going to use the default lot sum. However, I am going to change the minimum distance for 200 points or 20 pips and leave both the multiplier and the coefficient at 1. The minimum distance on the ATR is going to be my preference of 14 periods, and I'm going to use a multiplier of 2. Now, when it comes to our gain loss target settings, firstly, I'm going to select the break even option and enable different take target for first order and change it to 20 pips or 200 points. Next, I'm also going to enable my average trailing stop, where it starts when the trade is 6 pips in profit and trails by 2 pips. So what we're going to do this is test this on the 15-minute time frame for the Euro USD from the 10th of January until the 10th of December 2022. and it's going to be on every tick based on real ticks. So let's take a look at the graph and see how this set file and strategy performs against the real tick data. As you can see, every time that the grid enters drawdown, meaning price has gone against it, it closes the trade on a break-even level. Remember, this does not take into consideration the commissions that you will be paying on that trade. You'll see that these events, even though they are dramatic for such a small balance, I do feel if you use proper discipline and only trade during specific times and avoid major news events, you could limit the amount of drawdown experienced on your account. Now for this, where it only opens the grid in a break-even level, remember, this does limit your risk. However, it also limits your earning potential. As we can see, our $100 deposit ended on a $208 equity, or a total net profit of $108.16, with an equity drawdown of $89.40, with a profit factor of 1.83. If we look at the margin level, it is very indicative that we know that this set file only works on 1 to 100 recommended margin level. Now that we have made these small adjustments, if we use the average point weighted, which will be the riskier option, and keep the other settings the same, let's take a look at the graph. Remember now, if for the first order, the take profit is 20 pips or 200 points, and the take profit for the grid is 50 points or 5 pips. What I'd recommend or try do alongside this is if it gets to a certain level, let's say 5 levels in the grid, I would switch it to break-even mode for that session. However, because of the strategy that has multiple confirmation and using the ATR for your grid, it is able to trade through this period with a very healthy profit. If we take a look at our equity and balance curve, you'll see that it goes up from $100 all the way to over 300. These periods of drawdown are hectic. However, for risk that we are taking, we are getting a good quantity of return. Our total net profit is $230.36, with an absolute drawdown of 7.8% and an equity drawdown of $115.63. The profit factor is 2.74, with an average win rate of 75.09. Our largest profit is $28 and our largest loss is $8.75. Our average profit is $1.65 and our average loss $1.82. If you look at the distribution by days, remember, if it does open a trade on a Friday and it goes into negative, it will hold that trade over Friday and only try, if it is in a grid, to close it in a small profit. So this was done on a delay of 5 minutes based on every tick based on real tick data. As you can see at the bottom right, my connection from home is 161 milliseconds. So for me to be able to get that 5 millisecond delay, I will need to test the set file on my VPS. A VPS gives the ability to turn your losing trades into winners, because scalping and entering at the right price is crucial to getting the correct return. I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for watching, and happy trading. Until next time, bye.